Are we live? We are live. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Mario's Mind. I am the eponymous Mario, who, and this is my good friend, and for the day being guest, Nadir Paris. How are you doing, my good friend?
Bro, I'm doing fantastic. I think that was wonderful. So, Mario, why don't we tell the people what we're doing here and what we're trying to achieve?
So fundamentally, we are right now going over. Um, it has become of recent prominence, people on what's normally called the autism spectrum. This is due to a whole assortment of reasons, but mostly uh, it's related to the fact that as the culture shift and people become more open on their condition, especially on the higher function, and there is less of stigma around it. I myself was diagnosed at age 3 when I was struggling in kindergarten, and over the years I lived with my condition. I don't necessarily consider it a bad thing, but rather something that is how I interpret reality and how my brain handles information. It can be a good thing at times, and it can be a negative thing if certain things are not adjusted. But you take the lead on this one, since you seem to be interested in knowing a little bit more about this.
Well, really, Mario, we've worked together in many campaigns and we've come to forge a friendship. And one of the things that I've caught myself is I didn't know what it was like working that with people that had disabilities or much more about the disabilities. And bro, when I interviewed you in the DLC office, right, when we were doing all that stuff, you told me that you had Asperger's, yeah,
Yeah.
and that you had these limitations, but you were one of the best workers. You were one of the best campaigners. So I thought that this show would be a really good way of kind of breaking down these stereotypes. I also have a good friend. Her name is Paola. She also has a disability, and much like yourself, she's never let that get in her way. She's a successful social media influencer, and I've never seen it as a limitation. It's her superpower, and the way how this is your superpower. So I think this is just a really good opportunity to kind of bridge the gap, right, between what people know, what they see, and what's real. And I think with your ability to speak and your way of communicating, you could bring a lot of light into this, into these living with disabilities, and how and really the mind of Mario.
I get slightly overwhelmed to positive, stimuli because I am very unused to it. But no, fundamentally speaking, I don't view it so much as a disability. Disability at the end of the day is something that impedes your functioning within certain contexts. And the reality is that when you are on the spectrum, especially on the higher function end of it, it doesn't quite impede your ability to perform tasks, but rather your ability to form connections to other people. And that is always going to be the struggle when you are on the spectrum, when you are like that. Luckily for me, I don't have the learning disability or the difficulty of functioning within a task or understanding tasks. I have difficulty being able to execute them and be able to present them to other people. And that is something that, is difficult within the condition I am. Which is that, essentially, I do my job, I do the things that are asked of me, but I have difficulties, being able to connect with other people, being able to speak to other people, being able to understand social cues and understand what people are trying to say to me. It is something that I constantly am struggling with and I'm constantly trying to overcome, and it's something that I just have to learn to live with.
And how have you learned to live with it? So you said that you were diagnosed at a young age. So was this something that you always like almost like yourself knew when you were young? Did you feel different? Did you see yourself as different? And how did that start coming to be as you grew up?
Well, I'm going to be completely honest when I say that I don't really view myself as different from other people. Different is as different wants to feel. I am myself and I am somebody who has very normal interests. I like cars, I like trains, I like any type of complex machinery. I also enjoy, except normal people would enjoy what is called neurotypical people would enjoy. And I don't view myself as that different from people, which is arguably why the alienation is something that is difficult for me to handle. Is that I
You
fundamentally
don't view it, but other people do.
yeah,
So it's almost like this disconnect.
yeah, you know and so that's always been the difficulty within my condition. Well, I think I'm normal. The only thing I view abnormal about myself is my need to inject insulin, but that's diabetes, which has nothing to do with my neurological condition. So what does this amount to? Well, it's one of the things that I work with in the subject, and it's how do I relate to other people? How do I understand other people? Although recently, for me it was very difficult, and it still kind of is.
But I'll give you I'll give you something here. Um, when I first met you, you were definitely a little rougher around the edges than you are now. I will completely be honest, and I don't mean that in like a demeanor way. I literally mean that now you're because the way how I saw it was if you thought of something, you said it. And then sometimes you wouldn't necessarily pick up on the social cues to know when to interject or when to not overstep or when to not, cross the line, so to speak, in social settings. And it's not so much about what you do, it's more about how people perceive it. And this is something that kind of bothered me during the campaign was when, yeah, bro, you got to talk a little bit closer and a little bit louder into the mic.
Of course, my sincere apologies.
No, you're good. You're good.
Inside voice in order to not be
No,
able
no,
to
no. But
apologize.
but you should totally use your regular voice, like because you came in real meek, even though you're not a meek person. But don't worry, we figured it out, and we
I
got.
always am trying to learn the circumstances I'm in before I adopt certain tones or I adopt certain behaviors, and that's something. But keep going on your point because
Yeah, the point was, bro, that you now, and it's not even a year, like literally like months after, are more composed. You under those social cues that you said that you had difficulties with. I have seen firsthand you combat it and learn. So you are getting better, bro. And I think you should celebrate, even if it's a small step, but you are curtailing it and you are owning it. You know what I mean? And and it's hard because I remember with the other campaign staff that people wouldn't want to work with you, that people didn't want to be in the same space because they just didn't know how to deal with it. And I'm not here to say that those people are assholes or but
that's part of life.
but ultimately there there was a lack of education. There was a lack of understanding on how to work with people who aren't what did you call it,
Neurotypical.
no, that aren't neurotypical or whatever the case might have you. So working with you, Mario, has brought a lot of insight to at least how I see people and to how I understand different things. Because Mario, like I said, like you formed such an invaluable part of those campaigns. You were always on time. You always canvassed. You literally did like you were one of the best, you know? And I, prior to meeting you, would have never thought that somebody who had neurological issues or wasn't wired the same way as me could perform at the same level. And you clearly proved that wrong, you know?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, that
Talk a
is
little
one
louder.
of the mechanical aspect of it because fundamentally I do perform tasks, and what you describe is fundamentally the fact that I have acquired data points of how to function within your context. Like within autism spectrum disorders, there is a notion that is the notion that is digression, where essentially if a person on the spectrum is isolated from social circumstances for a period of time, they will lose adaptations that aid them in functioning within society. Because to function within society, you have to acquire data points. And the other day, a friend of mine called me angrily, accusing me of being a drunkard. But fine. And then I guess it's if you think I was exceedingly, and he was particularly angry with me, and he was disturbed by the end of the call because for some reason I didn't get angry at any point. Like he came there for a confrontation.
So he came at you all sideways, and your response was chill, and he thought you were gonna blow up. He thought you were gonna blow up, that you were gonna like retaliate, that you were gonna.
And I simply, not only did I take it, I even was thankful to him because I told him, hey, you provided me with some very good data points. Because I function based on data points provided to me by individuals around
So
me.
you have almost like a feedback mechanism.
That is fundamentally how I'm able to function within society. I accept the criticisms because if I lack the social cues, the second best thing is to have clear, apparent, and direct data points that I can reference in order to adapt my behavior to the circumstance I find myself in.
I think that is definitely a good way to go about it, but I've seen that mechanism occur and it be toxic.
It could be
And when I mean toxic is like, I hate it when people give you shit. Oh, I lowered my little seat here, but I hate when people give you shit for something that isn't in your control. And I feel like, for example, we all mess up.
Yeah.
I mess up. Steve over here producing messes up. Ilemar, so we all mess up, right?
In fact, my last name is written with two A's, not with an A and an E. So please be careful next time.
But listen, check me out.
I just realized that.
But check me out, Mario. We all mess up, right? But I feel that people berate you a little more when you mess up. Do you feel that way sometimes?
Yes.
Like you get more punishment than other people?
Yeah, twice
because
the effort for half the reward.
Right, because it almost feels like, because people have this expectation that you are gonna mess up, that you are gonna be a burden or a cause, that because that's the expectation, they double down on it when they do provide those criticisms.
On the contrary, I feel that it's because people observe my behavior, my eloquence, and my ability to present complex data points and present complex topics with ease, that they feel, okay, if this guy is capable of explaining quantum mechanics.
Le puedo meter la cantaleta, le puedo decir el tipo, whatever.
Yeah. Just because I come off as somebody who's very level-headed and very, outgoing.
Well, when you want to be, I'll be honest, I've seen you not level-headed.
The difficulty with being level-headed is because in order to maintain a level, you need to be able to have some level of internal tranquility and to be able to control what's going on around you.
Mhm.
And that's usually what detunes me, is outside circumstances. I'm always trying to work on how can I improve that, but the reality is, since the way I interact with the world is where I respond to outside stimuli, it's going to be sometimes difficult for me to, be able to control how I respond to this outside stimuli. But one of the things that I do find is that essentially people can be extremely rough with me, but it's not because they expect me to screw up. If you expect something to go wrong, it can hurt you less. The thing is, people see me and they see how I speak and they see how I dress and then they see how I carry myself. And they think, oh, this guy is doing this on purpose. This guy is just being rude to me. But in reality, I'm not trying to be rude or antagonistic or even harmful. Like, the guy who called me out on the phone 3 days after the event, where I was exceedingly drunk, according to him. This guy, he was probably saying it at the best of his ability. And, he did dismiss my notion of, hey, thank you for providing these data points. But the reality is, he himself had a struggle with, a condition, and that was social anxiety. It made him severely uncomfortable to see me so outbursting and so lacking internal control, which is fine. It's not meant to be a call-out post, but it's becoming one. I'm serious. But yeah, that's part of the thing. If you have social anxiety, then you probably should understand that I do lack certain controls, and that's not a lot of problems. I'm actually very thankful that they actually called me out, because it is through criticism that people can improve. It is through criticism that you have a basis to build upon. And, the only thing that bothered me from that entire call was the fact that he was making it about himself and that he was so confrontational.
And it wasn't really about you or the issues that
it was simply him saying, you make me heavily uncomfortable whenever you are under the influence. And I'm like, okay. Okay, good to hear.
Good to hear.
Good to hear.
Mario, what are your interactions with other people that have Asperger's? How does that usually go?
Okay, the last long term relationship I had was with somebody who was also high functioning on the spectrum. It went completely sideways.
Tell me about your love life, bro. Tell me about your love life, bro.
To recreate the room, the great Tommy was so magnum opus the room. Let me tell you, it is. It is. It just is. Like there are people on the spectrum who have it worse than I do. There's people who are not on the spectrum who have it better than I do, and I don't feel like my limitation is really so much that I'm on the spectrum, but rather the way I handle myself with other people. Fundamentally, with me, I struggle a bit with my love life because everyone does. Everyone at a certain age does, and everyone has difficulties, and everyone has difficulties communicating their feelings, communicating how they want to be treated, communicating how
Fact.
they want to, go
Yo,
around.
Mario out here dropping gems, son.
And so, with my last relationship, I think it really was a lack of communication because while I was putting a lot in, she had some difficulties because she did not understand what I wanted out of it.
And what'd you want out of it, bro?
What I wanted out of it for her to be happy.
And you don't think she was happy? Like in your relationship, or maybe you guys went through like phases?
There's always phases to every relationship, and to be completely honest with you, I think that I was a little bit too patronizing, a little bit too, meek when it came to my own desires. I
Like you didn't tell her how you like what you wanted out of it. Like you didn't communicate. Like if something bothered you, you wouldn't tell her.
in part, and I also didn't want anything out of it myself. I just wanted her to be happy and to be functional and to do well in school.
Okay, I don't know if you were a simp or if you were I'm still trying to figure out the dynamic here because
Essentially,
were you simping?
I wouldn't say I was simping. No, but no simp will ever admit to being a simp.
Yo, straight up. Yo.
So that's up in the air.
Yeah, that's up in the air.
And simp is in the eye of the beholder.
Right. Because I'm simped and I'm like, I ain't simping. Oh man. Okay, so you weren't simping. We got that out of the way.
But you cannot have a relationship based out of pity with the other person. You
For
got
sure.
to love and you got to appreciate and you got to be respectful of the other person.
Do you think that she loved you the way how you loved her?
Definitely not. Definitely not. But that arguably is a good thing.
Why?
Because you do not want to patronize your partner. You do not want to treat your partner as if they have a disability. You do not want to treat your partner as if they're weak or as if they have difficulties or as if they need help.
You want to empower your partner. You want to.
Yeah, and empowerment does not come from trying to be there, constantly trying to do their stuff and constantly trying to help them out and constantly trying to give them advice and pleasing them whatever way necessary, even at your own detriment. That's not a relationship. It's literally you trying.
You're being like possessive, obsessive, very toxic Miami vibes.
Worse than Miami vibes. At least Miami vibes have cocaine.
We can't say that. Oh man, we don't endorse any of that stuff.
We do not endorse any or all forms of simping, Miami vibes, or hydrochloride of cocaine.
None of it.
None of it. None of the above. The last 5 minutes, that's completely independent of the network.
Completely
independent of the network.
This is the mind of Mario.
Endorse it. The staff does not endorse it.
This is the mind of Mario.
This is not even the mind of Mario. This is a stream of thought of Mario.
Right.
Those streams of thought. Again, these streams of thought are not my full opinions, but rather means to analyze and arrive at conjectures on the matter of emotions, relationships, and being oneself. Fundamentally, oneself is not so much what one feels, but rather how one presents those feelings. And hence, others can memorialize the individual. For instance, our best account of who Socrates was is nothing that Socrates ever wrote. We actually lost what Socrates wrote. our best evidence of Socrates and his way of thinking is a book by student Plato called The Republic, a like 6-book tome that deals with how great Socrates was and how much of a shame that he's no longer around. But that's what we have. Socrates might as well be a fictional character made up by Plato, based on the fact that outside of another few students and the continuous existence of the School of Athens, there's not really that much historical proof that arguably the most influential Western philosopher, the Confucius of the West, existed.
So with that being said, how does that tie into the cocaine comment?
Okay, the cocaine comment is a joke about Miami vibes and the fundamental aspect that Miami is infamous.
For that.
It's completely infamous.
So the Aristotle point and the Miami joke got nothing to do with each
No,
other.
no, they absolutely have to do with each other. Fundamentally, they are both about the perception of others because fundamentally.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Like Miami, this toxic stuff is portrayed as this, and what you're trying to say is that with the Aristotle,
Not Aristotle, the
Plato,
Socrates and
Plato. That part of high school, I failed. I just read the Odyssey, but but check me out, Mario. You know, I think we touched upon a couple of things overall, and I'm really appreciative in you taking the step forward to open up to us and work to bring more awareness to Asperger's in general. And we appreciate you kind of talking about your relationship because people don't treat people with disabilities like normal people.
I mean,
but you a normal person who loves, who hates, who gets uncomfortable, who gets flustered, who can get envious. You experience all these emotions just like all of us. So what I'm trying to really get at is, Mario, is that, you know, there are a lot of people who are just like you, and yet they might feel like they don't matter or that they won't have a chance or a voice, or even if they feel equal. So I think the whole goal of this is to just show how much more equal. It's almost like Mulan, right? Like, you know, the plot of Mulan.
Yeah.
Fa Mulan goes and takes her dad's
armor, decides to join the Chinese Imperial Army again to repel an invasion. In the movie of the Hun, by the way, even though the Huns technically were more of, while being Eurasian steppe riders, they technically were more of a European problem than a Chinese problem because around the same time there was a series of bandit tribes which actually were attacking China. Oh God, why am I talking about
No. Keep going. By the way, y'all, I don't know if you know, but I really think like Mario's show is gonna develop into like more history.
It's gonna be like the inverse of Ancient Aliens, where we don't really start out with historical accuracy, but we wind up being a 3-hour special on the historical accuracy of Mulan and all adaptations of the legend and Song of Fa Mulan.
So what I tried to say with the whole thing of Mulan is that much how socially she wasn't expected to do what she had done. It's almost how socially there's not the expectation of you starting your own podcast and representing those when you're, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why we're breaking these, I guess, stereotypes and coming at this from a very holistic angle. And honestly, I didn't know how it was going to go. I knew you were going to throw something. I didn't know it was going to be a joke about cocaine. But
Miami vibes.
Right. But I'm here for it.
We're all here for it.
No, 100%.
This is the Miami Blue Porsche 911.
The Porsche Blue 911. That's a nice car. What's your favorite car, bro?
Oh God, that is actually a very complex question because it is a question on different aspects of automobiles and what the automobile represents to the individual. Right now, my favorite model of car is the Audi RS6 Avant, which I consider to be a masterpiece of German engineering.
Is this your German accent? Because you sound a little Italian here, son.
I sound extremely foreign and weird.
All right, bro. So listen.
I make the accents for fun.
Maybe we can talk about like what cars you like on the next show.
Next show, the car special.
The car special.
Well, and this is slowly becoming the History Channel.
hopefully we'll beat them. But check me out,
At
Mario.
this rate, we are. Actually, while we're here, let's talk ancient aliens. They're not real. Folks, people built those things. And every time you say that aliens built it for them, you're taking away somebody's ancestors' great achievement.
Are you talking about how like the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids,
No, they built the pyramids
but with alien help?
without any alien help. It was all Egyptian.
So are we team alien or team no alien?
I am making the extensive joke on the fact that ancient alien is fundamentally a carryover theory of the theory of how do I explain this? Fundamentally, you have to view ancient aliens as a theory that, while not inherently racialized, has became slightly racialized in its presentation. Because while yes, there's the argument of, oh well, the Nordics received help and, oh well, these people received help, it essentially argues at the end of the day that outside of some Semitic civilization and some Western Mediterranean civilizations, all of our civilizations were incompetent. When in reality, all civilizations starting since the Bronze Age and before were the things that built the world. Like the Sumerians didn't need help from anyone to get where they got. In fact, you could even argue that as far as running a city-state, they were kind of incompetent because their language died out. And it didn't die out because, oh, it was an extraterrestrial language. It died out because they fundamentally had a means of trade that secluded the inclusion of their language into it. They were functioning within the Semitic world, and hence the Akkadian people were able to actually observe them because they were able to communicate with the more gentry tribes of the area.
Mario's mind is a beautiful thing, ladies and gentlemen, and I think this is going to be an amazing go at it. And I think what we just need to figure out is maybe a little bit more structure.
Yeah, no, we need to add a lot more.
For sure, because we went from your love life to aliens to cars. What else did we do? Mulan. So we're gonna figure out a little bit more structure. But overall, I think this is good, great direction. I think we definitely got some micro contents here. But overall, Mario, any last remarks while we close out, because we want to keep these shows to about like a 30-minute slot.
Fundamentally, I want to close with one ending thought, and that is, that if you are somebody who thinks of yourself as different, who thinks of yourself as lesser than others because you're different, I'm going to be honest with you. I feel that as well. And the reality is I am very much wrong with that because you're not. You're a human being. You're just as worthy as all those people you feel are putting you down. And the reality is most of those people are not putting you down. They just don't understand how to handle you. They just don't understand how to work with you. They don't understand what you're going through. And that is fine because one day you will find people who do. One day you will be in places where you understand and where they understand. And that you should not gain your value from others. To blame that way of being on you is might as well be blaming God. If you could make yourself anew, you would not spare any inch in pleasing them. But you can't. You are who you are, and you need to love that.
Bro, you gonna make me cry, dog. Stop,
I
dog.
worship the entire
Damn, dog.
America. I hate myself for that.
Damn. Yeah, okay. Mind the Mario shit. Oh my god, bro.